Hello, this is Tip Top Gaming here today with another Magic the Gathering news video. Now today, August 26th, is a banned and restricted announcement. Now, the reason you're seeing a black screen right now is because I myself have not even looked at this. So we're going to go through it together. Alrighty, so we have Standard. Okay, so they're making changes in Standard. So, Rampaging Ferocidon is now unbanned. So, for those of you who don't know, that was the only card banned in Standard. Now, a lot of people would argue that, hey, maybe more should have been banned, but it looks like they're trying to make dinos have their time in the spotlight before rotation, so they might as well unban this, as the red rush is not that big of a deal anymore, and which is the original reason why it was unbanned. Next, we have Hogak, Arisen Necropolis. Now, this, of course, is the big one. This is the thing that needed to be banned. Everyone was having a lot of issues with this card, and basically it was just ruining Modern. So everyone was like, it better get banned or else I'm quitting Magic. That's pretty much what they said. On top of that, Faithless Looting is getting banned. And Stoneforge Mystic is unbanned, which says, for those of you who don't know, the last two were more known, so I'm going to read this one. When Stoneforge Mystic enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an equipment card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Then you may pay 2, tap it, and return an equipment card from your hand, or put it from your hand onto the battlefield. So this allowed you to put some really powerful cards with high CMC just right on the battlefield, which was very powerful. And I guess that's being unbanned. We'll see their reasons why in a second. Then in Vintage, we have Karn the Great Creator, Mystic Forge, Mental Misstep, Golgari Grave Troll, and Fast Bond, all being changed. So the first, these four are being restricted, and this one's being unrestricted. Well, that's a really good card. So why don't we get into this? So this is effective August 30th. It will be effective August 26th for Magic Online, and it'll be effective August 4th for MTG Arena. And I think this is one of the more interesting dates. If you notice, September 4th, that I believe it's next Thursday, which means that this Thursday is going to be the road ahead. So we can pretty much guarantee that now. Then the next banned and restricted announcement will be October 7th, so you can expect to see a video then. So we periodically review the banned and restricted list for cards we can remove that will positively impact a format. Rampaging Ferocidon was banned during Ixalan Year Standard in order to weaken aggressive red decks and provide more counterplay by blocking with creatures and gaining life. Since that time, aggressive red decks have become weaker in the metagame, and as stronger and more varied strategies have emerged. Two popular new standard decks enabled by Core Set's 2020 release are Scapeshift and Ursa Vampires. Both decks seek to win by putting a lot of small creatures onto the battlefield, and Ursa Vampires deck has many ways to gain life. Rampaging Ferocidon should give red aggressive strategies and other decks like Jund Dinosaurs an additional option to fight Scapeshift and Ursa Vampires. We're really happy with the health of the standard metagame right now, and we believe that this will further improve the metagame, and it should self-correct for the remaining of Core Set 2020 standard season until Throne of Eldraine. Note that Rampaging Ferocidon will be banned in traditional best of 3 on standard, on a best of 3 standard on MTG Arena, but will remain banned in best of 1. So this card will be unbanned in best of 3, but stay banned in best of 1, meaning that Nexus of Fate and Rampaging Ferocidon will be still banned in best of 1, obviously. This is due to differences in the metagames between those play modes, with aggressive red strategies performing well in best of 1, which I believe is very true, and of course that's Rampaging Ferocidon. Okay. Then we have Modern. Since the recent Modern Horizons, graveyard decks using Hogak, Arisen Necropolis have an enormous impact on the Modern metagame. After early signs of the metagame being unable to self-correct, such as players adopting large amounts of main deck graveyard hate and the Hogak deck still boasting high win rates, we restricted Bridge from Below to weaken the deck. Since then, the results of the Mythic Championship 4 in Barcelona, several Grand Prix, and other tournaments have shown that Hogak continues to have a high win rate and oppressive effects on the metagame. In looking at the evolution of the archetype over time and the variety of successful ways to build the deck, it's clear that Hogak is the problem, therefore he is banned. Coming out of an unhealthy modern metagame, they admit it. We want to avoid taking a half step that once again leaves the metagame in a place where itself can't self-correct. Over the past year, graveyard-based strategies have been occupying a large portion of the modern metagame, to the point where deck building diversity is being suppressed. This is reflected in the high rise of heavy-handed main deck anti-graveyard cards such as Surgical Extraction, Leyline of the Void, and Rest in Peace. We'd like to shift gameplay a little bit back away from the graveyard and back towards the hands and battlefield. The key card enabling a majority of these graveyard-focused decks is Faceless Looting, as it allows you to not only draw 2 cards for 1, but it also lets you discard, which is generally a bad thing. But in graveyard-based strategies, that is a very good card. Buyer data collected on Magic Online and tabletop tournament results over the past year, the most winning modern deck at any given point usually has been running Faceless Looting. As new card designs are released that deal with the graveyard, discarding cards, and casting cheap spells, the power of Faceless Looting's efficient hand and graveyard manipulation continues to scale upwards regardless of Hogak's recent impact. Faceless Looting would likely eventually be added to the ban list in the near future. In order to ensure the metagame doesn't revert to Faceless Looting graveyard deck being dominated, we believe now is the correct time to make this change. This is amazing. They are normally the let something blow up, then fix it, rather than see a problem and fix it before it really blows up. And this is a little bit of a bad example because Faceless Looting, as they said, has been at the forefront of modern, so it's not as proactive as I think they could have been, maybe banning this a really long time ago with that being the thing, but I don't think that's really that big of a deal. I think that this is a very good step of them looking ahead. I mean, even just the amount of changes, I think this is what the game needed. Knowing that these changes will already shake up the metagame, it's a good time to review cards that are currently on the ban list. Just as our philosophy in unbanning Jace the Mind Sculptor and Bloodbrain Elf last year, we recognize that over time the power level modern increases naturally as card pools grow. Cards that we've added to the ban list on pure power level may now be more appropriate in context. We believe that we can unban Sword and Forge Mystic as it is an appropriate inclusion to the card pool. Instead, our hope is that gameplay becomes less graveyard focused. Stoneforge Mystic serves as an enticing draw for decks and refocuses the battlefield. Then in Vintage, so yes, this is a very long announcement, War of the Spark Modern Horizons and Core Set 2020 have been among the most impactful sets for Vintage in years. We've been listening to the evolution of Vintage over the last several years and months, and as the metagame has begun to settle, now the London Mulligan is officially, we've had some time to review data and tournament results, and we'd like to take some action. Though our data shows that Vintage is in a good state of balance from an objective standpoint, with nearly all top 10 decks having 47 to 50%, 53% overall win rate, which is, it's a pretty balanced, that number at least. We've heard the community concerns about an increase in turn 1, turn 2 effective wins and less interactive gameplay. We would agree and like to move the format back to a place where the community's happy with, even if taking multiple steps over time if needed. Again, this is really good. Listen to the community. Take action. I know it's burning value, and I know that's very hard to, balance, but I think taking action will be better for the game in the long run, as long as you don't go crazy. I guess there is a very delicate line to walk. Recently, Karn the Great Creator and Mystic Forge have turbocharged Shop's decks by giving them more early game lockout potential through Karn's static ability, a tutorable win condition through Karn's -2, fetching Time Vault, and the key, either one of these keys, which is also from M20. And card advantage in prolonged games, especially through Mystic Forge. Relating to Karn's static ability, Vintage is one of the formats in Magic where players can enjoy super powerful artifact mana like the Moxen, Soul Ring, and Black Lotus. We'd like to reduce the number of games that immediately come down to an early card, preventing the opponent from casting spells. Therefore, to make shop decks more interesting and interactive early game and more attackable, we are restricting, so he is not banned, he is just restricted, Karn and Mystic Forge, and they might in the future add Sphere of Resistance. Dredge decks based around Bazaar of Baghdad have become more powerful with the London Mulligan, and some recent card additions such as Force of Vigor as a means of fighting opposing graveyard hate. In order to slow these deck downs, we are restricting Golgari Grave Troll, which that's what it does. This has been a problem card in lots of Dredge decks. Mental Misstep has been a controversial card among the Vintage community for years. While it does provide more opportunity for interaction, it also is the strongest against the most interactive decks. Moreover, a large part of the reason for including Mental Misstep is to fight an opponent's mental missteps. This creates a situation where many decks are deck slots they must devote to fighting each other at the expense of weakening themselves against shops. In addition, dredge decks often use Mental Misstep to protect the graveyard engine or disrupt opponents. We believe that restricting Mental Misstep will open up more deck building diversity, strengthen interactive decks, matchups against shop, and weaken dredge. Since our philosophy is that Vintage should be about playing with access to all of Magic, we periodically re-examine the restricted list for cards that could create new decks and play patterns. Recently, many players have suggested Fast Bond, which is pretty awesome. In 1 mana, you may play any number of lands each turn. That's crazy. Although it does deal 1 damage to you. As a card they would enjoy building with 4 copies of. Since most Vintage decks rely heavily on artifact mana and play fewer land, chances are that deck building on Fast Bond would look quite different from anything in the current metagame. Other cards we considered unrestricting in the future are Windfall and Necropotence. For those of you who don't know, Necropotence is a crazy card that lets you basically just pay 1 life to draw a card. It's a little more complicated than that, but you guys can read that. We are very interested in what the Vintage community thinks of these changes and whether further banned and restricted steps are needed. There will be more opportunity to change banned and restricted before Eternal Weekend in North America, and we are willing to do so. So please continue to make yourselves heard like you have been. I think this is a very good start. We're changing up the ban list. We're getting a lot of things banned and restricted. I think that this is going to be awesome, and I think it's needed, and I think it's a really good step. So if you guys want to hear more news, hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.